France.
और कहा इस वक्त केंद्रीय मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमण कंपटीशन लॉ इन्फोर्समेंट के 10 साल पूरे होने के मौके पर आयोजित कार्यक्रम को संबोधित कर रही हैं। सीधे चलते हैं इस कार्यक्रम में।
Different from where you're located. So if that is the way the global competition is evolving, and it's not evolving somewhere whose impact is not on us, whose impact is so much on us that we are still probably wondering as to how we are going to rein in that kind of, if I may use the word, abuse. It's not always abuse, but that's a smoking gun. That's the smoking gun which I think governments, not just in India, but also in Europe, in countries which we think are far ahead of us in understanding competition law, are also confronted with. So every now and then we get these fantastic cases which have fantastic amounts and claims, and which also have such dimension to competition law, which many countries which are the so-called free economies are struggling to understand and disaggregate so that they can handle each aspect for itself. Now, if that's the way it is, and if that's the way they also have an impact on us, those kind of developments have an impact on us, I think Competition Commission of India, when I say is got to mark its 2.0 from now, we'll have to look at two things. I was just, as I was seated there, checking up with the chairman, how many cases would you have started on a suo motu basis? If the number of cases on suo motu is just not the number, but also the way in which the Commission has to keep itself alert to many of the developments which are happening globally. Two things which the Secretary mentioned and all of us referred to, where within our national boundaries you've been very proactive, and kudos to the Commission for it, where you've come up with the Green Channel notification much ahead of Injeti Srinivas's report. And also you set the law, the RERA, by your own actions well before the Parliament thought about it. So you've shown clear proactiveness in many of these by coming out well ahead of the government or well ahead of, let's say, departments which are doing a lot of research into this. But you've come ahead when it came to the question of setting the agenda for, let us say, mergers and acquisitions, as much as when you've done it for the RERA's precursor. Your orders were the ones which formed the spirit behind Parliament coming out with RERA. But if that's the way you've done within the country, I would think Competition Commission 2.0 should look at what's developing globally and which already is having an impact on us. Physical borders no longer determine competition within a country. And in that way, I think we are dealing with not fair play as it is. You're dealing with an entity which is outside, probably legally complying with many of the requirements in those jurisdictions where they exist, but having an impact, unfair impact on consumers here positively and probably unfairly most times. If that is not abuse, what can be abuse? And if that abuse is being felt by the Indian consumers, who probably are not even exposed to many other aspects of competition in that particular activity, I would think it's just the right thing on which Competition Commission should play a suo motu role, understand, commission for yourself quite a lot of in-depth studies, and take a position and probably even direct the government towards what it has to deal with, which probably, for many reasons, government would hesitate to tread on as things stand. So there is a very big challenge before the Commission in the new economy context, not just within the terrain, not just within the jurisdiction in which you operate, but because the jurisdiction has one leg somewhere else, it has its own dimension, which we have to keep in mind. So I would call upon the Commission to, for the next decade, well in time from now, look at two of these very critical aspects, the sans frontier competition unfairness which is on us, and the suo motu role which you should play And that would really put both the parliament and the government in a better position to be able to understand the competitive world which we are living in. And that competitive world for India has a unique feature which I'm sure you're aware of, but I would like to take this occasion to put before you. If MRTPC, monopolies restrictive trade practices, governed the era at that time, the socialist era for India, it was a great relief to come out of it in 91, open up, have a competition commission which will look at fair play, non-abuse, even if size is not the matter, but abuse was the one which we were concerned with, wanted to have level playing field, opened up economy, have market forces determine what should be determined, and stay far aloof from it and see what is going right or what is wrong, is all very well taken. And also simultaneously to have governments since 91 being conscious of reform, systemic reform, and looking at legislative and legal support which has to be extended for a commission like that, is all happening. I would still think today, if we introspect, competition, fair play, free market are all today being looked at with a certain sense of caution. Because of the capitalists, what I may want to use a word with a certain sense of discretion, but for want of a better word, the capitalist excesses which had happened in some economies have thrown open this debate of what is actually competition, how far is the market really being fairly monitored or regulated, and therefore when you're looking at market being regulated with fair play as the criteria, in this era, when globalization itself is being looked at with a sort of suspicion, saying, is it doing justice? Competition Commission in India, therefore, will have a newer challenge, not just because of the new economy, but because of the way in which India would want to be an open economy, but yet be conscious of fine lines which have to exist. So in that note, I think Competition Commission is got its job cut. You've got enough challenges. You have certain developments which are happening at the macro level, all of which should guide us, both in order to protect the Indian consumer, but yet ensure that Indian enterprises are not going to be subject to excessive abuses from companies which are existing somewhere else, which do not submit themselves to the Indian law per se. So the challenge I would think, and that is why I dared to put before you that Competition Commission of India probably will mark its second decade of existence with a clear 2.0 kept next to its name, because the challenges are newer, more unique, more typical of our era, and also looking at the world in which the world as a elastic commodity extended and extended today probably is coming back to being to its normal length and width.